I apply this formula in this context up here, it's going to pull this 15% value up here. And they're saying, oh, I've got a $25 million construction budget. And in the second month of construction, I'm going to spend 15% of that. And therefore, I'm allocating that $25 million in these proportions here. Okay, and so these are just some illustrative proportions for how hard costs in a construction project might be outlaid. Just to give some background context here. Generally speaking, the hard costs for construction are going to be outlaid in a bell-shaped curve profile. And the longer it is, right, the flatter it's going to be. But let's just use this profile as an example. So this would be month 1 of construction. And let's say this is month 12, just for illustrative purposes. And so this is the end of construction. So what is happening here at month 1 in terms of construction hard costs? So this is hard costs spend or outlay. Right? We have a static budget. The budget is a total of, let's say, 25 million. But the area under this curve, the full area under the curve, is what totals to 25 million. And so in each month along the way, right, we're spending some portion of that 25 million. So out here on the left, the very beginning, the hard costs start out quite modest. And this is, I'm going to fence off the site. I'm going to pay to rent fence to protect this valuable asset that I've closed on. And then out here at the very end, the hard costs that I will be incurring are going to be related to landscaping. I'm planting the last of the trees and the shrubs and the flowers in the flower beds. So those types of things. In between is where the real action of the construction process is occurring, right? And so the apex point in the construction process, topping out, right, the vertical structure, topping out of the structure. It's at that point that you have the most labor and labor trades and materials and equipment on the site at any one time. Okay, so talking about concurrent presence of the different trades, materials that are being put in place, equipment that's helping the construction take form. Okay, and so as we lead up to the topping out, you're generally adding more and more of those elements. And then after you top out, you're going to be removing, right, some portion of these things because you're now focusing on finishing out. So that's the general thought. And this is just a known cost curve profile from millions and millions of buildings having been built over time. Okay, and so the way that we can model effectively and efficiently using VLOOKUP is, again, by taking some static budget amount, right? That's something that you would get from your construction executive or your general contractor, somebody perhaps giving you a conceptual budget when you're looking at a project. And you're saying, okay, well, they're telling me that it's going to take X number of months, and they're telling me that this is going to be the cost. And what you'll find if you go to work and development or for a firm that's going to be doing any type of construction, even if it's a value add project where you're just doing interior renovations, this number is going to jump around quite a bit, especially for ground up development though, and especially in the earlier stages. So this is a very prime example of a variable, right? It's an input that you're going to make in your model that is going to change and change and change and change. And if you're the owner of the spreadsheet, you're the one who has to constantly update it. And so you want Excel on the margin to do work for you, not for you to do work in Excel. So you program a basic line like this to say, all right, well, let's take a look at this variable, and whatever this variable is, find the matching amount here, and then reference that set of data relevant to that amount, and then pull it up. Okay, there's one nuance here, and then simply multiply, right, one times the other. So that's quite straightforward. The one nuance here is how many movements into the array should it go to pull the correct number in any one period. Okay, and so the operative thing here is that we're labeling these construction month numbers. This is not elapsed project month number. It's specific to the schedule of construction. The activity of construction has its own counter in this case. And so what we say is, all right, well, for construction month number 1, what place in our table from left to right is the proportion that relates to month number 1? Well, it's here, okay? The one quirk of Excel, the way they program this function, is that it's actually going to start counting sort of out here, outside of the table, to the left, just outside the table. Generally speaking, if you were to make a very broad brush statement about development, this is one that you could make. And so you'd say, if I'm putting money into a development transaction, generally I'm going to put in equity and debt, okay? And the equity is going to have to go in first. And so if this is sort of time 0, right, and this is my construction period, right, this is pre-construction, therefore, right? And during pre-construction, I'm doing design and engineering and getting permits and closing on the land. So again, broad brushstroke, your equity is going to pay for that initial design and engineering, if not all of it. So A&E, architecture and engineering, and then other soft costs. It's a sort of a bucket terminology for things that are not hard construction and not land, and land, okay? And so the thought is the equity is generally going to get consumed by those things. And now to pay for the construction, which is the big, maybe, you know, around 60% of your total project cost is hard costs, okay? That's generally going to come from a senior construction loan, okay? And so because you're incurring costs in this piecemeal manner, right? Every month I'm incurring a certain set of costs, okay? You're actually going to just draw down this dollar amount in this period, or rather, it's done in arrears, right? So you'll draw down basically, you know, here to pay for this dollar amount, and here to pay for this dollar amount, and here to pay for this dollar amount. And so that is a process that you just repeat every single month. So whatever the set of bills that come to you as a developer from the general contractor, right? The general contractor is going to provide you with what's known every month as a pay requisition packet, okay, or a pay rec, okay? And that's going to have their invoice, the invoice of all of their subcontractors, and you will, as the developer, look through it and verify that all of the work that's been claimed to have been completed has in fact been completed and put in place. And then you will fashion that into what's known as a draw request, which you submit to the lender. So a lender draw request. So this basically becomes this, okay? As you are going vertical, right, on the structure, that's when you have the most intensity and the most simultaneous costs of these major cost elements.